Bom dia, Portugal!
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.
Hola, bon dia, alegria. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show, a live stream and podcast. Banner! As soon as I feast my eyes on the screen, I realize there's something missing running along the bottom. I'll tell you myself this morning, rather than have the green ticker tape for the time being anyway. I'm sure I'll be able to bring something onto the screen to excite you into the proposition. Yes, this was the one from last time. Do you remember when we last saw Vitor Costa alongside James Holly, the friend of Slug? It was Blue Monday, the 15th of January, and a month on. I think it's fairly safe to say we've survived Blue Monday, right? So I will adjust that ticker tape to let you know that it's Vitor Costa and James Holly this morning for a bit of Mindful Migration Monday. Both strong, muscly, testosteronic advocates of taking personal responsibility in life. And I know that is the cut of both their jibs. So we'll talk more about that in relation to mindful migration and creating a new life here in Portugal. Also very keen to hear about how your weekend has been. Pete's in, Coach Turner's in, and James is already here, who will, of course, be with us in person. Well, as far as digital technology allows, he'll be here live at around 9 o'clock this morning. João Denor also in, who sent me a beautiful video this morning. And adventures with what? Frigorifico, which sounds like an Italian compliment, doesn't it? Excuse me, sir. May I ask, how is your ice cream? It is a frigorifico. I believe that is a refrigerator or fridge, as we might say in the UK. Do you say refrigerator, fridge? Cooler. Our Samsung died. Sorry to hear that. Okay, we'll hear about the story of the frigorifico, if I've pronounced that correctly, with the emphasis on the right syllables there. No doubt James will put me right on that. And I haven't got an elephant in the room meme this morning, but that's not to say we are not bringing you some language learning value. This morning, I had the inspiration to create postcards based on the wonderful collection of Portuguese sayings that are updated pretty much daily by Antonio F., our man Antonio F. here, Big Tony as Pete calls him, over at the Portugal Club. And I saw this one and I thought, this needs to be made into a postcard. They all need to be made into postcards. Look at that vision on the screen there. The poorly, well, I say it's poorly working. It's not working at all. The on-air light to the left, that should be dealt with by the mighty the executive producer, T-Duck, who will be having a little tinker with that later on today. To the right, you can see a Terence Austin original that was painted live on the show. Probably a couple of years ago now. That was great, that particular episode, wasn't it? And in the middle, today's vocab test for you. Dormir com janela aberta, constipação, casa certa. I like it when it rhymes. And can you guess what that is? Well, no, don't guess. Do a little bit of research maybe this morning, and let us know what you think that Portuguese saying says. You can find all of them. I think there's around 300 of them now. There's certainly 300 comments in the thread at the Portugal Club. Guess what? Under the subject, Portuguese saying. So there you go. Dormir com janela aberta, constipação, casa certa. And let us know what you think that means in the chat, if you will. So yeah, Vitor to come, James also to come this morning, and your adventures from the weekend. Let us know how your weekend has been, and let us know what you're up to this week as well. A lovely video then came in this morning from John. Thank you, John. Shot by Mrs. Donort, Senora Donort this morning. A Portuguese moment. Now, we haven't used that phrase for a long time, but I think you know exactly what that means. There are times in our lives here in Portugal where we go, oh, yes, this is truly a Portuguese moment. The most obvious, of course, the coffee and pastel de nata moment. But check this out, recorded in the Jardim de Donort here. This is truly a Portuguese moment. I'm going to turn it up as John recommended. Now, John suggested, I think you can probably still hear me because I'm seeing that I'm not being muted for this for some reason. But apparently, I was expecting the sound of church bells and birdsong here, and for some reason, I don't have that. But you can dub that in with your using the power of your own artificial intelligence, can you not? Over the top of that, but you can see it's a very still morning, and there's the pond in the north of Portugal this morning. How beautiful! So there you go. Thank you very much for that, João Denot. Let me just play it on my other source here and see if the sound does come out and if you can hear it. Oh, here we go. I don't know why that didn't come out. I'm hoping you can hear that now. Riotous. An orange tree in the garden. That's bearing some fruit for a tiny little bush, so to speak. Yeah, I hope you're hearing that on the second playthrough there. I don't know why it didn't come out first time. There you go. Move to semi-rural Portugal for a nice quiet life. And it's ruined by the riotous sounds of church bells, cockerels, and wild birds first thing in the morning. Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. What's this, Solar Life? Oh, okay. I thought it was kicking off in the chat this morning. So I think the second time you heard it there, João Denot, I really don't know what happened there. That's unfortunate. Let me just see if any of my other videos are playing, if the sound is coming through. That was the farmers from the other day in Caldas. So I don't know what's happening there. No, we'll figure that. I'll make sure we can hear that tomorrow or immortalize it on our YouTube channel because that truly is a Portuguese moment. Thank you very much for your thoughtfulness there, John. I trust you had a good weekend. I am actually now looking forward to hearing about what happened with you and your refrigerator. Okay, Owen's in, Michael Barton too. Bit sleepy this morning, aren't we, Gumpers? Did you see my opening meme this morning? Is this you? Are you in need of a coffee this morning? I rather like this when I first saw it somewhere on the internet. Turn that espresso cup to on. How many coffees have you had already this morning? Do let me know in the chat. Let me know how your weekend has been. And if you've got any exciting plans for the rest of the week. Great to see the Ducks yesterday. And Pete, I was telling T-Duck, who wants to go to see Merida, about I showed him your wonderful pictures that you sent me as well. He's got Merida down on his to-do list. What have you got on your to-do list this week? Are you going anywhere exciting other than Finanzas or Ima or Seth? Although we do want to hear about that as well. Let us know how you're getting on with your Portuguese bureaucracy. And if, of course, you've discovered any hacks to help other people get through those awkward and sometimes tedious processes. And yeah, actually very important processes if you're trying to move in and out of the country. So James was in at 7:46. Bom dia, Gumpers. Feliz segunda a todos. Como foi o vosso fim de semana? So there you go. How was your weekend? What did you do? Como foi o vosso fim de semana? Mindful moment then from James. I have learned silence from the talkative. Ouch. Tolerance from the intolerant and kindness from the unkind. If ever you've wondered why those people are in your life, Khalil Gibran might have a little bit of a clue for you, who says, I have learned silence from the talkative. tolerance from the intolerant, and kindness from the unkind. I should not be ungrateful to these teachers. Absolutely right. Spot on. And rather than a rim shot there, that should be a nice little spiritual, a little tone of some sort, right? Maybe a gong, perhaps, at the end of such beautiful, mindful moments. Thank you very much for that one, James. And more of that sort of thing. So mindful memes when we talk to Vitor later on. Mindful dad joke from James. And I found Dublin to be a very mindful city. When I was there, every train and every metro platform had "Mind the Gap" painted repeatedly on the edge. I've often thought that there was a sort of at least two meanings going on with "Mind the Gap." The mind is the gap, isn't it? The mind is the gap between us and direct experience. But anyway, sorry, I interrupted you there, James. When in Dublin, every train and metro platform had "Mind the Gap" painted repeatedly on the edge. What, the Irish band member of U2? Or the edge of the metro, yes, on the edge of the metro platform, which was then reinforced by a verbal reminder over the PA system, "Mind the gap, mind the gap," as people boarded and offboarded at each stop. Thank you very much there, James. Mind the gap, everybody. Morning, James and Carl from Pete. Top tip this week, the Little Middle Aisle. Have you seen the Little song? Going back to Ireland for just a moment, it's hilarious. Little Middle Aisle has seed propagators in packs of 4 and some very cheap seeds. We planted 432 seeds. Why? What do you know, Pete? What's happening? What's going on? No farmers, no food, and no food left in Lidl because Pete and Di have bought it all. We planted 432 seeds yesterday. You say it's in the Middle Aisle, Pete, but are there any left? And we'll do the same again today. Wow. Canary in the coal mine stuff. Is there something you know that we don't, Peter? Come on, spill the beans, although they're not ready yet. Bon dia, all you lovely gumpers, and welcome one and all to a wonderful new week. Top of the morning to you as well, Coach Turner. It's half term round here, so we're wrangling 2 granddaughters today. Wish me luck. All the best with that. Have some fun. Why don't you release your inner child rather than struggling too much with the wrangling? Get down on your hands and knees and scream and shout yourself there, Coach Turner. It's probably quite good exercise, in fact, isn't it? And just really act out on your feelings. Demand food when you need to. Pee yourself if you can't be bothered to go to the toilet. Those sorts of things. Have fun, mate. God Squad tip of the day then. A little story. My friend and coaching colleague, Dwayne Chambers, ran in the UK National Indoor Championships over the weekend and qualified for the semi-finals at the age of 45. It makes the rest of us who had a somewhat more leisurely weekend think, wow, yes, look at that. UK National Indoor Championships over the weekend, qualified for the semi-finals at the age of 45. That's a veteran, isn't it, in such circles? I am super proud of him and somewhat in awe of his incredible talent, work ethic, and determination. And it is a combination, isn't it, when you get to those heights, I'm sure. You can't just do that on skill or talent alone. You've got to have some other things going on, the sort of thing we'll be talking about with James and Vitor later on. While he is clearly exceptional, there is a lesson for us mere mortals to learn. Dwayne and I targeted breaking the 45 plus 60 meter world record 4 years ago, which he achieved in January. That was a stretch target, but we believed it was achievable. However, we also set some much smaller ones. I see where you're going here, Coach Turner. They included performances both on and the track and off, including fixing some long-term injury issues. So what long-term health goals might we set ourselves, and what little wins do we need to get there? So it's not just the big, what did you call it, a stretch target? It's the little steps along the way. And to give you a little clue into what we'll be talking about with Vitor, this is a slideshow from his timeline, which I didn't ask for permission. I'm sure he's going to be okay about this because these were published in the public domain. He's an unending source of such memery. Don't burn your opportunities for temporary comfort. I think that chimes beautifully with what you're talking about there, Coach Turner. Don't rob yourself in the short term for the realization of a longer term goal. Fantastic. It is a tad more. Let's come back to those a little bit later on. Thank you very much, Coach Turner, for that this morning, and congratulations. If you could. How about that? Would you mind next time you see Dwayne Chambers to say to him, the people of the Good Morning Portugal show appreciate, admire, and compliment you on your recent qualification there. It's a tad more difficult to make a hustle if you are as recognized as Dwayne, but I remember losing 50 quid to the world indoor women's rowing champion when I was in my 30s. Well, there are quite a few people in their 60s and 70s locally that would undoubtedly beat all of us in any strength tests. Our carpenter was lifting beams on his own at 63. Oosh! The guys doing the gates were lifting huge concrete blocks on their own, and he was 68 with a 59-year-old assistant. That's awesome, isn't it? Not concrete blocks, granite blocks, he'll have you know. Superb. Bon dia, Portugal. So João Denort was adding the sound effects for the video that I played rather poorly, and I do apologize for that, we didn't have the sound on that, but I will rectify that. That definitely needs immortalizing on the YouTube channel, João Denort, which I hope you won't mind me doing. Absolutely beautiful. Riotous start to the morning in supposedly quiet rural Portugal. Adventures then with our frigorifico should be resolved this afternoon. Our Samsung died, only 1 year old, and we were authorized to get a full replacement of any brand of equal value from Wharton. Sounds simple, but it wasn't. Oh dear, a bit like a Radio Unpopular, aren't they? 5 visits to the store to get Samsung to honor the warranty, and eventually a formal report from, we know what that means in Portugal, don't we? From Wharton to the Samsung complaint book, immediate results thereafter. Oh my goodness. Why does it have to be so difficult? I am sure you were right first time at Good Morning Portugal. Things do go a little south as we age. What? The fruit, tomatoes as we call them here, are certainly lower hanging. Too much information. And a refrigerante is a soft drink. Ah, yes, a coldie, you might say. Open your back window too often and you're sure to get constipation. Close but no cigar, which is a poorly added image. There isn't it of a stogie. Not quite. I think you know what it means, Pete, but that's a very good improvisation there. Sleep with the window open and you wake up with a stuffy head, nose. Yeah, a cold. Basically head congestion, sinus congestion. Thank you very much. Pete, to João Denort, complaints books do get people worried, but not half as effective as small claims. It's a sad old situation, isn't it? When it takes that. But I suppose once that becomes the habit, that's how things work. Greetings from the sunny and warm Algarve with temperatures reaching an amazing 23 degrees. Yes, indeed. I was seeing a few friends in the south bragging about the heat yesterday. You know who you are. And yeah, good for you, by the way. And yes, the amazing Paolo Fonassi, always quick to send a picture from the Algarvian beaches. When it gets, I think he comes from a cold part of from Italy, and that's why he's so happy about being hot in Portugal. He's feeling the political heat as well, with some of his bold moves just recently. He's feeling the heat from some political corners here in Portugal. Sleeping with the window. That's the guy who wants to build a cricket field, by the way, for Asian migrants down in the south there, and give them something to do at the weekends on their one day off of the week after working hard all week. Picking fruit and so on, and working in restaurants such as the rest of us might have a nice life. Sleeping with the window open is almost certain to cause a cold. Is that right? I like sleeping with the window open. Maybe different constitutions get different results with that. Language is the theme, and probably a tosser too. A tosser being a cough, right, Pete? Bon dia, everyone, from Michael Barton. Has Miranda de Corvo returned to showroom condition after the recent Carnival proceedings and celebrations? I hope you had a great weekend. Cheers, Michael. We did. Bit of a weird one. Jimmy Choo had taken himself for a walk on Saturday morning. And which means that Mrs. M gets in a bit of a flap. Who doesn't like to get in a bit of a flap first thing in the morning? I became aware in my lie-in on a Saturday morning. Must have been around 9:30. Jimmy, Mrs. M's searching for Jimmy. Better not say that too loud because he'll come to the window now. It became evident that Jimmy Choo had taken his leave of Carl Munson and gone off for a walk on his own. And he's a silly little so-and-so. He's got maybe he's got a little bit of road sense, but not a lot. So he likes to go off. He's a bit of a hunter. Our other dog, she's a home bird. She's happy to be. If the gate was open, she'd have a little sniff outside and then come back. Jimmy comes back in the end on his own, but it's always a worry when he's discharged himself from my oversight. So I had to jump in the car and drive around the neighborhood looking for him, only to see a knowing look from a fellow dog owner gesturing. He had a dog lead in each hand, so he couldn't point. He was just going over there, over there. And Jimmy Chu was relieving himself on the roundabout at the top of the street of our kind of cul-de-sac setup here. And I pulled up alongside the roundabout, taxi for Jimmy, and then he jumped and home we went in a typical sort of pattern. And I think he looked a little bit guilty. He knows, but the call of the wild is greater than his urge to please me at times. Hola, bon dia from Owen. Good morning to you, mate. How are you? And we are on the case. Gardening starts early this year, says Paul Richards. And audio and video are best when combined together. Thanks for that, John. We will make sure that happens on the YouTube channel because that video is beautiful. And I think I shall entitle it a beautiful Portuguese moment from the north of Portugal. And we'll be finding out more about what's going on in the north of Portugal, of course, when Vitor joins us this morning. He might be joining us a bit early because he's out on a photo shoot this morning. Oh, I see. There may be some incoming on 913-590-303. There's a good morning, Carl. Today's foggy morning in the Mafra region. That looks nice. Thank you. João F. Remember him, everybody. João F. Oh, and a glorious San Martino de Porto this weekend. So we'll show that to you as well. That's not from me, funny enough. I don't think we went to the beach, did we? Oh, we went to Salir. We had a nice walk at Salir de Porto and went to the Tudo no Brasa, I think it's called, isn't it? Everything on the grill. And we got our chicken on Saturday night from the chicken shop over in Salir de Porto. Thank you, Pam, for that picture. Thank you, João F. as well. And incoming on, the morning birds and a turkey in Mosteiros this morning. So, sorry, by way of a little bit of compensation then, another video, this time with sound. Bon dia, beautiful but foggy Miranda de Corvo. Oh, these pictures are beautiful. Thanks, everybody. It's that kind of morning. I think a little bit leisurely, foggy, but no less beautiful. Bobby O'Reilly as well. Can you post here the video? Certainly can, Bobby. We'll sort that out for you as well. That was the video from the Flavors of India. That's the teaser, not the full-length version. Who doesn't like a full-length version? First thing in the morning. And that was the wonderful editing job that Ben Austin did on the wonderful Andy Klein's footage that I'm trying to find it. We played it for you on Friday, and I'll have to make sure that goes to Mr. O'Reilly as well. Who else has been sending images? Oh, James, thank you very much. I must have missed these earlier on, but I can play these or show these with you. Gone with the Woodwinds. That looks like fun. A bit of memery going on there as well. And now my WhatsApp has just frozen up for a moment. But I've got a lovely, lovely video from Sarah. Thank you very much for this, Sarah. Let's play this for you now, rather than do too much more admin behind the scenes, downloading things. Here's the video then from Sarah and Dan this morning. Lovely little place called Mosteiro. It's close to, where would you know, possibly? Cortain. I've talked, of course, about Cortain and Cortain wines and the sad passing of Chris over there a few months back. This is not a million miles away from Cortain, where Sarah and Dan sent this lovely video this morning. Beautiful, Sarah. Thank you very much for that. That's one thing I miss, not being deeper into the interior. That wonderful sound first thing in the morning. I absolutely love the sound of deafening peace. And was that a gobble I heard in the distance? Who doesn't like? I think there was a turkey there in the distance on Mosteiro. Thank you very much for that. 3 coffees so far for Peter this morning. Planted 432 seeds yesterday. Same again today. You'll have your dibber out then, Pete. Don't forget to put it away when the district nurse or the neighbours come round. It's called a dibber, isn't it? They are doing 4 packs of 36 seedling propagators for a few euro in Little Middle Isle. It's a good bargain. In the Little Isle. And Pam Smith, bon dia. Let's have a look at your picture from San Martino de Porto this way. It looks quite kind of quiet. And I was very surprised. The Portuguese folk don't get down to the beach when it's a sunny weekend. I think it's really quite quiet until about mid-afternoon. It certainly was this weekend. And there's a lovely picture of San Martino de Porto Beach. I've swapped the beautiful sound of loud birdsong, I think, for the lapping of water on the beach. There must be places, mustn't there, where you can hear both, I wonder. What's that sweet spot where you can hear water lapping and the deafening sounds of birds in the countryside? Or maybe you don't. Maybe they are mutually exclusive, I wonder. Oh, here's a meme that I was going to show first thing this morning. But I decided to show the coffee picture. But look at this that I found somewhere on the internet. I tried donating blood. Never again, in capital letters. This person quite cross. Too many stupid questions. Whose blood is it? Where did you get it from? And why is it in a bucket? Very good. Thank you very much for that. Lots of lovely greetings this morning. We've also got a beautiful picture in from Michael Barton and Joao F as well. That's a beauty, an absolute beauty there. Joao F and Michael Barton. Thank you very much for these. Let's have a look at them now. So there was the San Martino de Porto Beach. This is Miranda de Corvo. Look at that blue sky with a little bit of mistiness going on there. And from our dear mate Joao F, Joao Ferreira, Mafra there. And is that a nut plantation or are those grapevines there in Mafra? They look quite bushy and they may be vines that haven't had a trim yet. Or they could be little nut trees, couldn't they, there? I wonder. And a lovely apple or pear tree in the foreground there. Thank you very much indeed, Joao F, for that. Beauty from Michael and you, Pam, as well, for your lovely pictures. The weather was lovely here. 25 in Alcobaça, where it can also get warm, you know. All right, let's see who else is here this morning. Talking of minding the gap, my mind has a gap, says T-Duck. Is that generally speaking, T-Duck, or is that a bit of a what's it called? Jet lag thing, a jet lag thing with you. Where do we get to in the chat here? Bon dia from Sarah, of course, and that lovely video from Mosteiro. I have a Portuguese yodel. Aldi or little or intermarché. Very good. Sábado was a day spent in the garden for João de Norte, for the Donorts, planting 41 hydrangea cuttings in 13 groups of 3. Hold on a minute. Oh, okay, with 2 leftovers added elsewhere. Pictures sent of those as well. That's lovely. Thank you very much. And T-Duck, it's on our shortlist. We went to Badajoz and no clue about Merida at the time there. So a little bit of chat going on, I think, between T-Duck and Solar Life Pete there on little forays across the border into Spain there. Merida, we have the pictures to prove that the bleachers went over there. I went with someone to help with some admin stuff on Friday. That's a proper mercy mission, isn't it? Ambitiously, we aimed for Vodafone. What were you thinking? We aimed for Vodafone, Mayo, EDP, and Freguesia. We managed 2 out of 4. That's a good hit rate with 4 bits of Portuguese business. In my current Portugal resident article, I recommend only 1 a day and a sexta in the afternoon. So well done on 2 out of 4 there. So that's how the pyramids were built, by 63-year-old carpenter slaves from the Portuguese interior. Very good. The hydrangeas were planted all along the western front, the western garden wall, in groups of 3, each group 2 meters apart. That's very specific, João de Norte. I think Wharton needs assurance and legal recourse to get their reimbursement from Samsung, reckons James, and experience. Do drop us a line if you are so much closer than we are than you were in the US, and it is truly a wonder of the world, James. There is that for James, or is that for what? Stop. Okay, where was I go? Was that about getting in a flap or something earlier on? Was lovely weather here this weekend too, says Pam. 25 degrees, and apparently our local school have been playing cricket recently. Oh, I was translating. Personally, I enjoy sleeping with the windows open. Okay. Thank you, John. And don't recall ever getting a cold from it. Right. It must be it vary on your constitution, your personal constitution, and how delicate you are in these matters. To Pete, if that was an invite to come and visit Obrigado, it's definitely on my list. I'm just starting to get my travel legs going, says James. He can say that to you himself in just a moment. The like button has been smashed. Thank you for that reminder, T-Duck. Good to have you back. And a few loose screws are causing my gap. I'm sure you could a little bit of a tightening. Apply some lubrication, some grease up your apertures and tighten those fixings, or just pull them together with a bit of chewing gum and a few cable ties, as everything seems to be, or many things seem to be held together here in Portugal. Let's play his music, shall we, and welcome him onto the screen. It's that man of mindful migration. Friend of Slug, James. He's got his own theme tune, which we'll play now, which we always enjoy on a Monday morning. It means, James, it means it's Monday if you're here, just so you know. It means it's Monday. This music. Have I had my medication? Oh, there's me music.
Bom dia!
Olá, bom dia, tudo bem? Como estás, meu amigo?
Muito bem, obrigado. Como foi o fim de semana? O teu fim de semana?
Pois, isto é complicado. Not knowing the Portuguese, so let me cast my mind back. Trabalho em casa, churrasqueira com frango, muito bem. Salir de Porto. I can just say names, can't I, to get through this bit?
Yeah, I used to do that with Spanish in California. I said I could speak Spanish. San Francisco, taco, San Jose, enchilada. I know all kinds of Spanish.
Yeah, very good. You have to remember, I've made a mental note already. Just rattle off a list of Portuguese villages, towns, and cities, and then
there you go.
Yeah, say livro
People
de
who don't know, they'll think you're a master of Portuguese.
Hold on a minute. Livro de Reclamações is not a Portuguese village, although it probably should be. Right, now, I think you got the little bit of Portuguese wordplay correct here. I'm liking this idea of turning the Portuguese sayings into postcards. Dormir com janela aberta, constipação, casa certa. Does your constitution have a little bit of a sniffle if you sleep with the window open?
Never.
Never.
One thing about my translation. First of all, I was thrilled that I knew what it meant.
Yes, well done.
Secondly, by the time I had worked through it, it was off the screen, so I couldn't remember exactly how it finished. So I knew it had to do with sinus congestion, but quasi means nearly or almost a cold or stuffy head. Anyway, in my experience, I have always wondered, what is it about people and water coming from the sky that makes you sick? What is it? Rain makes you sick. Cold makes you sick. Everyone says that when it's cold, leave the window open, you'll get a head cold. To my knowledge, never ever happened to me personally. And it doesn't make any sense to me why that is cause and effect. The only thing that's made any sense to me at all is that I had heard somewhere, and it's really at this point just rumor, that our immune systems are less resistant in the winter or something along that line. It also makes sense to me that when it gets cold, we get more congested as humans. We become close together. We get into tighter environments with each other, which makes the spread of contagion more possible. Those are the only two things that make any sense to me, but it's not directly the cold or the water. It's the conditions that perhaps that they create. As far as I know. Now, if there's science that shows why, I'd love to see it, because I'm always fascinated by, scientific explanations of why things happen, especially when they don't make sense to me. So,
okay, well, I can't help with that. You know me, perhaps one of the least scientific people that you may know in your peer group. I do, of course, I have a theory, even though I can't back it up with 27 peer-reviewed papers.
That's most of my belief system right there. Probably most of all humans.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna throw in the word homeostasis for added credibility here.
Sure. Be sure to say research shows, and then offer it shows some kind of percentage, and everyone will believe you.
And I'll make a meme with a man in a white coat and a stethoscope around his neck, and
there you
put
go.
it in inverted commas right next to it, which will add to the credibility 50%, I'm sure. And some studies 75%. So
there you go. See, it sounds so credible now.
Easy. The thing about sleeping with the window open, I would say, and it probably goes back to when people were perishingly cold indoors and weren't wrapped in a duvet as we are when we've got the window open, is their whole body would have been cold. it's not just their face and beautiful cold air that they were breathing into a body that is swaddled in continental quilts, duvets, blankets, and everything else, or other warm body or bodies next to them. This is when people were truly cold. The windows open, and their whole system, their what is it? The parasympathetic. Parasympathetic nervous.
Well, it might be getting more and more AI synthetic, perhaps.
The robots don't have to worry about this sort of thing. They could just go in for a service if their parasympathetic nervous system breaks down. But our bodies are at work on our behalf, thankfully, right? Otherwise, there would be a lot for us to take care of. And I think once kept in reasonable conditions, i.e., warm enough, that will help us. Whereas if we store our body in a cold environment that's too cold for us, that's going to start to have a negative effect. And that's when I think
and I would attribute that to stress, and that would make sense to me.
Yeah, right. And it's a downward spiral from there on in, isn't it? But in many ways, I think there's nothing more lovely for us. Go on.
Well, maybe they're just dying a lot younger. I guess that's the truth. When people didn't have houses and they didn't have windows.
Well, yes, of course. We live in luxury.
They were dying by age 30. So
yes,
it didn't matter.
I mean, or here in Portugal, I saw the most amazing story of country life from about 60 years ago, I think it was. The conditions that people were living in some parts of Portugal, and these were the times when a saying like that would have come to light. Shut that window. We haven't, we're not covered in duvets and electric blankets and goodness knows what. It was central heating and heat pumps and solar panels, etc., etc. They were flipping cold. And this is why I think sometimes when, we're out and about and our kids have got bare feet or they don't have 3 layers on in the spring, you'll see a Portuguese grandma, giving you an admonishing look. You're not looking after those children appropriately. They're going to get a cold. And this lives on in the culture, doesn't it? And I think that saying comes from that same historical context.
Who knows? It may have just come from one cold person who was trying to find a way to leverage someone to close the damn window. Like the Santa Claus threat. If you're not a good child, Santa won't come visit. It's like if you don't close the window, you're going to get sick.
Do you know
we
what?
Don't know, but
it went viral. No joke intended. But it's before the internet, some of these sayings that might have no basis of truth in them would have gone viral in their own sort of story-told way, wouldn't they?
Because someone would have said, research shows there's a 20% greater chance of getting a cold when the window is open at night.
Yeah,
and then it just everyone believed it.
And someone was good, and Santa had brought them a doctor's outfit that Christmas, and they had a white coat on and a plastic stethoscope around their neck, and that was it. Now we accept that as an article of not just faith, but science as well. So there you go. We got more value out of that than I imagined. Very good.
But we hadn't even planned it. Perhaps we never plan any of our conversations.
I think there's talk of wind now, which you haven't factored in. Great extent.
It's got to be peat if it's wind.
Perhaps it's the cold wind combo and not just the cold there.
Maybe, yes.
Yeah, okay. And is this João de Norte with more commentary on this? Up here in Ponte Lima, apparently there's been a flu bug going around. Is this the beginning of a joke?
Is that giant one I saw in that photograph flying over in the never mind.
No, you can barely see him. He's got an electric car. He just drives around waving at people, or like just going. Slows down an electric car. Yeah,
you next,
and then just speeds off. We've been immune thus far. Not knocking on wood there, but refreshing actually to hear normal complaints without the hyperbole of recent years. Yeah, back to sort of winter flu. There, João de Norte, possibly the point you're making there. Okay, so excellent value. I think that's fair to say. We'll stay with this postcard from the Portuguese. We could call it that, couldn't we? The postcard from the Portuguese with a different saying each day. And there are so many of them over there, thanks to Antonio Ferreira and his encyclopedic knowledge of such things. I think he probably puts his white coat on and goes looking for them as well. So there we go. This morning's Dormir com Janeiro, Constipação, Casa Certa. And there's a nice little rhyming ring to it as well. Isn't that fantastic?
Yes. And I think now that I'm looking at it, I say, I think the reason I was able to interpret it is one, I was familiar with enough of the words. Two, the grammar is identical to English. It's in the same order as we speak English, so there's no confusion about doing it to yourself or any of that kind of stuff that gets confusing.
Yes, giving
and
yourself a cold.
You can translate it literally word for word. To sleep with window open, congestion almost certain.
Yep, very good. Nice little phrase there. Kaza is probably, would you pronounce that Kaza? Because it's like Quinta, Kaza there?
Quaza.
Because
it's a Q.
Kaza or Quaza? Yeah, but
there are here's some of the confusion, and it's so appropriate. This is a great lead for what I wanted to do today anyway, but the pronunciation of the U after a consonant like a G or a Q depends on the vowel that follows it. And you hear it in the language. You've just listened for an example in a language like guitar. It's G, G.
Yeah.
But if it's now I don't know, the example came to me in Spanish, but it still applies. No. Yeah, guacamole. It's UA. It's not UI. So it depends on the vowel after the U, whether you pronounce the hard consonant in front or you pronounce the U or not. And if you listen in the language, you'll hear it. And then you can just copy it. But as you know, I'm a big fan of rules when it comes to language. I also know that every language has all kinds of exceptions. So even the rules become very soft rules. But it helps me to understand a foundation. And then I can build from there. Okay, now that's an exception and that's an exception. And this thing alters that thing. But basically, this is the foundation. That helps me personally to understand a language. Because I'm not studying vocabulary. I'm not studying words. I'm studying a language. And I saw a video recently, and the woman remarked, and it was the first time I'd heard it said that way, and it made a ton of sense to me. She says, the words are only a part of it. The Portuguese don't speak words. They speak sounds.
Yeah.
And that immediately I went, right. So the listening is much more complex because sounds can be infinite.
Yes.
Right. Words are finite. I mean, there could be a whole lot of them, but they're finite. Words are finite. But sounds, any combination, put this with that and that with that, and that, it becomes almost infinite, which makes it far more difficult to try to learn a language if you're not learning the sounds.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Yeah.
And she put it together with that if you don't hear the sounds, and what the Portuguese do without realizing it, is their supercomputers of the brain are determining what is meant by the sounds being made based on context and grammar. And I think there was one other, but if you put it in the context, it's not going to be this word because we're talking about this, or it's not going to be this word because the context of the grammar doesn't support that word. It supports this word. And they know all that because they're raised with it, just like all of us with our native languages. So they hear these sounds and they know what's meant.
Yeah.
We who are not familiar with that need to see the word and translate it to understand, to put the pieces together. And that's what makes it so slow and so challenging and fascinating for me. I think it's both the grammar and the pronunciation, the sound of the language that's kicking my butt. And I'll get over it.
And that's, it's interesting, isn't it? Because that's why it's a bit misleading to know how many words there are in Portuguese, for example, because the words are one thing, and as you say, sounds are another. So it would go by a massive factorial, wouldn't it? If you had the two books, a book of Portuguese words, that would be one thing, but the book of Portuguese sounds would have to be in many volumes, I think, wouldn't it? And then the combination, not just of the sound of each word, but the sounds of those words when they're put into combination with each other. And that's why I think people who only do the A2 online out of context can come to Portugal and not be able to say a word. You know, there's this sort of gulf between the comprehension, the theoretical comprehension of the language that some people do, even in Portugal, a school class, and still go to a cafe and then open their mouth. It's, you know, because of that gap that's there between the concepts of the language and the lived experience of it, which I think is a pretty good metaphor for other things in life as well, perhaps. Now, James, I need to tell you that Vitor's joining us a little bit early this morning and probably will have to leave a bit early. So we're going to have a Vitor sandwich this morning, or a sanduíche, I should say, in Portuguese. It's a bit of a sanduíche mista, and you are the cheese and he's the ham, or vice versa, here this morning. Oh, and before we go from Portuguese sayings, just that's the link to more of them over at the Portugal Club. And there, just to let you know, there are 311 comments on that thread now, and that's updated daily. It was started by T-Duck, and it has been, the baton was passed to Antonio F, who's doing the most amazing job with that. So thank you, Antonio. And I will make more of those postcards. Right, should we bring him onto the screen and find out? Because his background looks a bit different to me this morning. So let's see how Vitor Costa is doing this morning. Nice big round of applause. Olá, bom dia, tudo bem?
大家好，我们有能 no wait dan能
Olá, bom
I
dia.
bet that's Chinese.
Ni hao ma. Ni hao ma.
yeah hello, how's it going?
3 languages in less
Hola.
than about 20
¿Cómo
seconds.
estás?
Bonjour.
Очень хорошо.
Trilingual.
Hello there. Right, what's going on this morning, Vitor? How is your grasp of Mandarin? Because I know you said before that it's really helpful for you to do Mandarin so you can understand some of the challenges Brits, Americans, other people learning Portuguese face when they come to Portugal. Is that still the case?
Yeah, certainly. And it because it's one thing to tell someone, you know, to do something to learn a language. It's another thing for you to feel it yourself. And even though you know it, it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
So I can give you an example, right? So there's this app that I've been using. It basically does graded Chinese readings. So it's like a story, has a text in Chinese, right? On the top, you can tap to show a translation or not. And usually what I do, it's like 4-page story, like very short, 4-page, like on a mobile screen, right? So it takes about 2-3 minutes. So I listen to it. Usually I listen to it without translation. Then I listen to it again while reading and seeing the translation so I know what they're actually saying. And then I will see it again, but kind of stopping in some of the words that I don't know yet, because you can tap it and see kind of the meaning of that word, which obviously in context isn't quite the same. And so the other day I actually had this, insight, because what I've been studying about language learning is that, I think it's Steve Kaufman, he says that the way to learn a language is to just immerse yourself and trust that your brain will learn the language.
Yes.
Right? Easier said than done. And so when I was doing that, I picked up one story. First time I listened to it, I understood maybe 5%. And even after doing it with the translation and stopping at the words, blah, 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 I was cooking dinner. And every time the story would end, I would repeat. And then I put it at 1.5 speed. Repeat. Yes. By the end of that whole session, both with just listening in Chinese and, seeing the translations and stuff, I was maybe at around 10-15%. But here's the interesting thing. I didn't touch that thing or Chinese for the most part for the next 2 or 3 days. And then I decided, hey, I'm going to listen to the story again. This time I understood about 80% without any extra effort on it and without really thinking much about it. So it's really weird how your brain learns when you actually stop learning. So if anybody thinks that they're struggling with Portuguese or whatever it is, I think the reality is you're learning a lot more than you realize.
Yes.
But you don't feel it at the moment.
Right.
It will just So one thing that I even told Maria, because she's been teaching Portuguese to some expats here in a private group, I told her, hey, why don't you start maybe on the first session, you pick a listening or a text or something. And, they listen to it and they see how much they understand, which may or may not be a lot. And then a few months down the line, if they have this moment that, oh, I'm not learning Portuguese or this or that, okay, let's do the listening again. How much do you understand? Oh, I understand almost everything.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. And what it reminds me of, a few things there. The fair play to you for learning Mandarin. So you are immersing yourself and understanding, having some compassion and sympathy for others learning Portuguese, which is very different to Mandarin, of course, but it's the same way of being out of
process.
Yeah. And I think there's a Gandhi story, isn't there, where a grandmother takes her grandson along to Gandhi to say, my grandson is eating far too much sugar. Tell him to stop. And Gandhi says, okay, come back in 4 weeks' time. And they come back in 4 weeks' time. And, the grandma's like, well, and Gandhi says to the kid, stop eating sugar. And the grandma says, well, why couldn't you have told him that 4 weeks ago? He said, because I hadn't given up sugar myself 4 years ago. And there's something very powerful, isn't there? As you're doing, Vitor, I'll take my hat off to you for it, in really understanding the experience from a personal point of view, rather than just pontificating or directing other people as to what they should do. And I think
when you think about it, this is how we learned our native languages.
Yes, exactly.
As babies and children, we didn't know there was anything but that sound that was going on. We had no idea what it was, what it meant. We started observing. We kept hearing it over and over. We began to put two and two together, not consciously, not studying. It just was occurring. Oh, when they say, do you want, that has something to do with when I have complained. They're putting it all together and they don't need to understand it. The difficulty as adults is, I'll speak for myself personally. I get very, very frustrated because I know it means something and I want to know what it means.
Yeah.
As a baby, we don't know it means anything. It's just noise. It's just sounds and we're going with it and we're figuring it out.
Yes.
So that's how we learn it. And it takes a certain amount of time. I think we can apply adult knowledge to some of it to help speed up the process. But if you've been here 2 years and you're talking like a 3-year-old, you're actually ahead of the game.
Yes. Or blah, 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 as Thunderduck puts it. It does sound like blah, blah, blah. And then you start to pick things out, as James did this morning when you saw the postcard, the Portuguese postcard. You forensically had enough relationship to what you saw to make up the rest, and that is a big moment. That's a beautiful moment. And there's something else, because I wanted to talk about sort of personal development and taking responsibility and all these things, which I know you're fascinated by, Vitor. I've got a slideshow from your timeline, basically from this week, which is always yes. And James as well. Similar themes. This is what we talk about on Mindful Migration Monday, and these different parts of our brain. When Mrs. M was giving birth to our youngest, she said something like, as you would hear in a childbirth situation, I can't do this. And the midwife said, who is saying that? And I thought, what? And it was like, and this is as I heard it and understood it, it was like, what part of Mrs. M was saying that? And it gave her a choice. It gave her a choice to, was it the part of her that was panicking? And she was able then to make a distinction between what was panicking and what was able to carry on with the process and clearly birth a child. And this is the same thing with the language. As certainly not making an odious comparison here, I hope, and offending any mums here. But the idea being that what we judge ourselves with when we're learning a language is not the same part that is learning the language. Our inner baby is learning the language. And then every time we're asked how we're doing with Portuguese, or we find ourselves in a public situation, the critical part steps forward, doesn't it, and says, I can't learn this language, whilst the other part of it, the baby part of ourselves, the bit that's always on and listening, is absolutely learning the language. And I think we need to, make some room and give some credit to that part that's always listening and always learning, and not let the other bit that comes forward and says, I can't do this, ruin our lives and our enjoyment of learning Portuguese. Anyway,
it's
James.
Too slow.
It's too slow. Judgment, the self-judgment that undermines.
Who's saying
right?
that?
Look, and as a public apology for you here, James, bon dia, James, I have to apologize because I have misunderstood what you said on Philomena Friday about the ending. Yeah. Isn't this amazing? How thoughtful is Philomena here? Tia Philomena, thank you for being here this morning. Great to see you. Dubai. You are absolutely right. You stressed the penultimate syllable. She's been thinking about that and now has the opportunity to put that right this morning. So bless you.
Obrigado.
Thank you for that.
Sí.
Do you, James, more for you, more fan mail and correspondence for you? Do you ever wear the hat on your left, the not cowboy hat?
Well, usually I wear it on my right, but
Very good. Oh dear, oh dear.
Playing with the words. Yes, I wear it. Whenever I go out in the sun, I wear it. My father died of melanoma. I have a predisposition that says don't get sunburned. So the first sun usually catches me out. I'm out walking. It's been cloudy, and then I realize it's been sunny on my face for an hour. And oh no, I don't have my hat. But almost always when I'm out in the sun, the hat's on my head.
Wonderful. Okay.
So
and he's not going to be wearing it in this environment, I don't think, unless he wants to excite us with a sexy, nonchalant wearing of the hat. The not cowboy hat.
Perhaps one morning I'll come on the show with it on already.
Oh, you tease us. Vitor, the man with a constant mission. That's what I'm talking about.
Remember that if you or a relative have been diagnosed with mesothelioma,
melanoma,
to financial compensation. Mesothelioma. I think that's the... Anyway.
Thank you.
It's another play on words.
Yeah. Nice little
I think that was some kind of advertising in the US or whatever around the time of asbestos, when they figured out that asbestos caused cancer.
Oh, I see. Right.
A lot of legal companies would make ads on that.
Yeah, they seem like so much more innocent days, didn't they? Where only thing you had to worry about was asbestosis.
Yeah, just chew on some lead. Why not?
Yeah,
we could sue the sun. That would do it. Let's do that.
Someone's working on that, James. Don't worry. And Elon's working on a way to get there to serve the writ. Fascinating to contemplate how written words first came about, as we humans were only accustomed to forming and listening to sounds. Here we go. Now someone is saying this symbol corresponds with this sound, and there it is. The path of learning again. Pete knows, of course, Sumerian language isolate, and the oldest written language in existence. First attested about 3,100 BCE in southern Mesopotamia. It flourished during the third millennium BCE. Thank you very much. Going back to minding the gap, my brain has a gap. The blah, blah, blahs are not making any sense. It's the Portuguese that is struggling with Peter, not him struggling with Portuguese. They're bon dia to you, Sarah. And I agree that letting your subconscious do its thing. It's a lot of people seem to freeze when trying to speak Portuguese. If you relax a bit, sometimes the right words come to you. And of course, a glass of Portuguese wine will help. Some people are so afraid of making mistakes, they never try. Well said. It's also true. Good morning, everybody. João F, who sent us
João.
Look at this. He sent us this picture from the Mafra area of Portugal. Is that a vineyard or is it a nut bush plantation? João F, if you could let us know that. It's great to see you back in the community.
Be both.
It could be, couldn't it? And
looked like I saw trees and vines, but I can't.
Yeah, I can't quite make it out in the mist there. Good to see every old face again. How very dare you? And Vitor,
yes, wait a minute.
I love your example of repeatedly listening to the same audio story over and over and allowing your brain to gradually absorb the sound patterns. Amazing how our brain works. And by the way, Carl, yes, look at this. The plantation in the photograph I said it was of pear trees. So I think some espaliered pear tree action going on there. Go on, James.
I just wanted to add, I have subscribed to or purchased Mia Eshmerisha's all-in-one language course, and she's a academically trained linguist as well. So, and she loves the language and teaches it. But she reads a lot of research on how to learn languages, that kind of thing. And apparently, the most current thing is exactly what Vitor was talking about. You just listen. Just listen. Don't worry whether you understand it or not. Just hear it. Just hear the sound of it. Then listen with a translation. So you begin to get a sense of it. Then just listen again. And then look at the translation and translate the words you don't recognize or understand. Get familiar with them. Then listen again. And then leave it alone. Move on to something else. And like Vitor said, you come back a week later and you, instead of understanding 10%, you understand 50 or 60% of it, just because you're familiar with it, because you've listened to it over and over. You've learned some of the vocabulary you didn't understand, and you've had time for your brain to just process it and hear it.
Yeah.
So I keep coming back to the dialogues. You know, you leave it for a while and do something else, learn other things, and come back and say, "Oh, I understand more." But
TV and radio are very important. Canal Panda, you hear these phrases over and over again, and then you can repeat them. And where did you learn most of your Portuguese? For me, supermarket, cafe, restaurant. It's where you're immersed, and that's why I maintain people who come to Portugal.
Yes.
And we've got, there's a very good foreigners have a very good record. We might be the exception to that in this sort of community, but generally speaking, after Croatia, foreigners coming to the country learn Portuguese in the greatest number in Croatia, and then Portugal is second, and I think that's because a lot of workers who are coming to Portugal go into Portuguese work situations, and they are immersed. And they've just got to learn it. They don't have the privilege like we do of avoiding it a lot of the time. They are in a Portuguese work situation. They've got to learn the language, and they do. Go on, Vito.
Situational context is much smaller.
Right.
You're learning the language of that particular work that you're doing, in addition to some of the familiar stuff. But you don't have every possible situation that you could be confronted with. For the most part, you're in a more limited arena to be able to share and learn and get familiar with, and that's helpful too. Context is hugely important.
Yeah, no doubt. I did have a few more. I do have to go in like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Because by the way, in case anybody's interested, I'm going to be taking pictures to a new listing. It's here in Sturãos, very peaceful area, 595,000, wonderful property, just renovated. But what I was going to say is a few things about language learning as well, right? Because I speak some English, as you can tell, and I speak some Portuguese because I was kind of born and raised here, right? So
just a little, un pouco.
I understand that many people probably only know English when they come to Portugal, right? Or whatever language. So a few things about language learning that I noticed that may help some people. One of them that I realized is lately I've been thinking about even the Portuguese language, and I noticed that if I didn't know Portuguese and I was trying to learn Portuguese through translating every word and through, thinking in my native language and then trying to convert it into Portuguese and vice versa, I would be very confused. It would be really hard to learn. Like, for example, the Portuguese word deixa lá, right? Do you guys know what that means? Deixa lá.
It sounds Arabic to me. It sounds like Urdu.
Deixa, D-E-I-X-A space L-A with acento. Deixa lá.
Right. No.
Deixa means to allow, right? Or usually like drop or something like that. And lá means there. But deixa lá is, it's okay.
Yes.
Like, don't worry about it, right? So if I was trying to learn what that word meant by translating it and seeing the meanings, I would get nowhere. So that's why I recommend, exposure. Don't worry super hard about knowing the literal translation of every single word. Just look at the sentence. What does the sentence mean? And then maybe look at the sentence that uses similar words, but maybe has a different meaning, so you can start getting a better understanding, right? And another tip is that because I've been learning, studying Chinese so much, Maria decided that she wants to come back to language learning as well. And in university, we had Russian. And so she's a lot better at Russian than I am. And so she was like, hey, I'm going to go back to learning Russian. What she did is she put her phone in Russian. And she told me a few days later, hey, expats that come here really should put their phones in Portuguese, because when I put it in Russian, I started recognizing and remembering so many words that I didn't realize. And it also forces you to immerse in that language. Because if you go to a grocery store and the old lady there only speaks Portuguese, I mean, you're going to have to figure it out, right? And she will talk to you in Portuguese because she has no other way of communicating. So you'll be forced to hear her say, "Queres couves? Couves." And then they're like, okay, couves probably means cabbage because she's pointing at the cabbages.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Immersion all the way, right? I think that's the key lesson this morning. And Philomena saying learning a language takes time and effort. And nowadays people are so used to having everything in an instant. They think they'll be able to learn in a few weeks. Well said. And thank you for that. Déjà là, there. That's a new phrase you can throw around today. Please do.
I've got one that I've heard a lot because Louisa uses it. She talks to her cat a lot, and she goes in and out with the cat whenever we leave. I kept hearing "andaka, andaka, andaka, andaka"
yeah.
over and over and over and over, and I go, "What the heck is andaka? What is she saying? You know, it's not come here. It's not." And finally, I just asked her, and she's like, "Come on, come on, follow me. Let's go."
Yep.
Okay.
And thereafter, Vamos embora, one of my favorites that
Wait. Small thing. There is andaka and there's andala.
No, this is definitely ka.
Come here and go there.
Yeah, andaka does mean come here. Anda, walk, ka, here. So in that case, it kind of means walk here. So andaka, come here. And then andala, which does not mean walk there, because la is there. It means come on, like andala, like hurry up.
Brilliant.
Again,
Thank
see,
you very much for that.
If I was trying to learn Portuguese by translating, I would be very confused. Okay, andaka makes sense. Walk here. Andala means go there. No, it doesn't. It does not.
Right. And we can sing. Look, the Beatles song comes to mind here, doesn't it? So if you want to embed this in your head this morning, just sing "Déjà la, déjà la, déjà la, déjà la." There will be an answer, but it will be very complicated because it's Portuguese. Right. I know you've got to go.
I do indeed.
Right now, I mean, can you give us a very quick 30-second report on how it's going in the north as far as property and real estate goes?
I don't know. I need to ask an expert about that.
Okay, well, when you found out, do come back and let us know. All right.
Go mix yourself and then come back and let us know.
Yeah, I think the expert is Portugal Door, right?
Yeah. The website might be down because we kind of have to remake it. But if anybody needs me, you know, you have my phone number, so maybe you can put it in there, or my email, info@portugaldoor.com. But yeah, I mean, lately we've been focusing more on some of our listings, like the one that I'm going to now. Rentals, you know, there's still a huge demand. We did manage to find a rental for some of our clients that had a German Shepherd, so that wasn't an easy find, and we did find a great one that was just on their budget. But the last two rentals we found were between 800 and 1,200 euros per month here in the north. Really good properties. You know, again, it's still a high price because there's a lot of demand, but things still happen around here.
Very good. Anyway, okay. There's your man, Vitor.
Hey guys, any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
All right, mate. Take care. Enjoy the photo shoot. Off he goes. We've just lost our ham from our son Schmichter this morning, but the cheese is still here, and you're looking at him on the left.
I am the cheese. One of the cheesiest people you'll ever meet.
With a nice hat. And Darren, thank you for your comments this morning. They've been great as well. Sorry, I haven't read many of them out. No, Darren, that's so painful. You see what it's like when James and I meet at around 9 o'clock on a Monday morning to do the whole show in Portuguese. It's a fair question, but this is an English language program for people who love Portugal, and we will talk more and more Portuguese as time goes by, and we have done. I think we do our best to help people learn, and we are seeing more and more Portuguese in the show. But I can't see that it will ever be presented entirely in Portuguese, because that would kind of defeat the point in a way as well. Yes, there's certain words I'm not comfortable with saying in Portuguese, so I switched to English for them. In other words, I'm very comfortable with. And you made another good point earlier on as well there. Go on, James.
So just, the point is great. It's stepping out of the comfort zone, giving it a go anyway. And that took me a while, because I was brought up on needing to be right and made wrong when I wasn't. So I still carry some of that energy. If this isn't right, then there's that sort of fear. And what I have found by risking that, and I still don't do it as much as I should or could, I find the Portuguese culture is very accommodating, and there's tremendous appreciation. I've had attitudes of administrative assistants and bureaucratic, secretaries or whatever handling paperwork. Their attitude toward me changed instantly as soon as I even made an effort to speak Portuguese.
Yeah, right.
It's just like, oh, he's trying. All right. I've had the response of, good little boy, good, that kind of energy that comes at you instead of what else do you need? Stupid Americans bothering me. That kind of energy just shifts. And I'm not saying it was, but to make the point. So that effort is definitely worth it. And I have actually come to invite people, the people I trust, and my Portuguese friends among them for sure, to correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to learn and make the effort. And now I'm at the point, I still can't say a lot, but I can say it well.
And you understand a whole lot more. Yeah, you understand a whole lot more than you've ever done, and exponentially more, I would say, rather than in a linear way. Very good. T-Duck has a question. I need to buy a 12-volt air compressor in Caldash. We won't ask why. Any recommendations beyond the Chinese shop? I'm guessing they are available in the bigger Chinese shops. But is there I think this is for inflating tires. So if anyone's bought one of those in Portugal and knows a store where one might get one of those, or where T-Duck might get one of those, do let us know. Aviva's in Madeira, boa semana. Thank you. Muito obrigado. Igualmente. Hola to you, Aviva. And this is your
Aviva.
Periodic reminder that volunteering is an excellent opportunity for immersion in Portuguese, which is where Pam's great vocabulary and ease with the Portuguese comes from. Barrandi is with us as well. Boas, Bom dia Malta, just back from a beautiful walk through the countryside. A bit misty to start, but clear and bright. Now, is that you or the countryside, or both, Barrandi? Déjà lá, that was a great little phrase. Thank you for that little gift this morning, João F. A great topic this morning about Portuguese versus English. We should bear in mind that many English words are actually similar to Portuguese counterparts, and people often do not risk saying them because they're
even identical.
Exactly. And some people are expecting something quite different and complicated rather than giving it a go. Again, maybe suspend your self-critic for a little while and your conditioning about being wrong or upset in these matters and give it a go. One of my teachers says, Pam explained it saying Portuguese is not a code for English. The words don't all match up. I think both are true. And about the expression, déjà lá, it actually translates to being let it be, of course. Let it be. And if you want to learn English, go to the Algarve. Very good. And how about when I say to the barman, tudo bem? He replies, yes, how are you? that also happens a lot, I think. And
even as we've been doing this, my mind is going over what Vitor said about anda cá and anda lá.
Yeah.
And it clicked, because literally, if I understood it correctly, anda lá means go there, which would be a way of saying get to it, get there, go there, get to the point, go there. So I can see how that would come together, and that helps me to remember anda lá.
And it will be the context where you see it being used, and that will embed it even more, of course, if you bother to immerse yourself. There are many more similarities than you would expect, and even when they don't match, it doesn't mean they don't derive from a common meaning in the far past. Absolutely, I think that connects with what you're saying.
Greek and Latin are huge contributors to all Romance languages, and English has some of them, many of them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Putting your device in Portuguese means that when you use voice to send text, your device wants you to use Portuguese. Family members have responded, where is Sarah? And what have you done with her? From Sarah Yerman there, thank you. I came to realize that in Portugal, they are very used to dealing with multiple languages, which is a very different mindset to England. Yeah, absolutely right, Darren. And decathlon, not to do with Portuguese, that's to do with buying a 12-volt compressor. I think that's right. Because if not for motoring in decathlon, they'll have a 12-volt compressor for inflating things,
bicycles
yes, that's right. So try a decathlon as well. That's a good shout. Thank you very much for that there. we're going to have a little pronunciation. I'm trying to find the appropriate sound effect for this. Okay, we're going to go for a pronunciation now, and we are going to risk sounding foolish. James, if I can draw you into this. One of the words is one of the words.
Believe it or not, this is actually the topic I was planning to talk about today, so it's perfect. We're right in alignment.
Okay, I'm going to give you a drum roll,
pronunciation.
James. Okay, so I'm going to give you a drum roll, and then you're going to go into it. Go.
Oh, I'm looking at Darren with words that are uncomfortable. That's all English. Oh, Caballero. It's a tongue twister.
The more you try and say it, it's one of these words.
Caballero. I would do the first EI is A, and the second EI is I, just because that's in my head. That's what I think I hear when I listen to the language. As someone said, EI is always A, but it's not. Sometimes it's I. There is a difference. So that's how I would try that one, but I would stumble over it. I still stumble over contribuint. Contribuint. It's still, but the combination just doesn't want to come out smoothly.
Bit like me and Lagos.
Yeah, so the answer to the question, that's to Darren, so that's for him to answer, but it's true for me too, Pamela.
Right, just a couple more on before we come back to you, because we're to the bread of the sandwich now. Now we've lost Vitor, but decathlon was a suggestion. Roadie, that's a good one. Now roadie is the motoring aspect of Intermarché. Isn't it? You've got Intermarché, then you've got Bricomarche, which is their kind of DIY builders merchant, and roadie, which is their motoring outlet as well. So there is a roadie in Caldash Tea Duck. I think that's the one. Right, Loja Chinesa, you said that yesterday. I'm not awake yet, but I would go to roadie. You might get somewhat better quality because we know that you get good value at the Loja Chinesa, but maybe not longevity of products. And try any automobile spare parts shop.
Yeah,
and
watch out for the plastic battery operated one.
Yes, they can make it out of plastic.
Work.
James is 100% right about Andalab. Brilliant, James. Look at you. Muito bem. Yes.
Logic. It helps.
Do you know what, Philomena? And I think I did this before, but Philomena, could I ask a favor of you? If you're not too busy, can you send us on WhatsApp a voice note saying, Muito bem? And don't put Carlitos on there because I'll use it universally for anyone who behaves well on the show. So if you could send me a voice note saying, Muito bem, we would find that very encouraging. And Caballero.
Okay, so it's Lele, all right? Not Lele.
Right. Okay, James, back to you and pronunciation. It's come together as though we planned it.
As though, and it's funny how the universe does this in my life from time to time. I was thinking, well, I'm not really, won't people think it's a little pretentious for me to be talking about Portuguese language and blah, blah, blah. And then something came up about language. And then another thing came up about language. And then you said, Victor was going to talk about language. I said, I'm going with it. It's all lining up. So the main point I wanted to say in terms of mindful language is I'm not a good speaker of Portuguese yet. I don't profess to be an expert in the language, but I know things as a learner, things that have helped me to learn to understand. And those are the hacks per se that I'm thinking, if they help me, they might help someone else. But before I go there, I just have to say last week when you talked about going into the women's restroom,
yes, I did,
humming the Rocky theme, immediately, because this is what my mind does. Immediately, I said, "Wow, what would have happened if he was doing Sweet Caroline?"
I don't remember.
Someone on the other side of the door goes, "Dun dun dun."
Yes, drawing further attention to myself. James, I don't remember. I mean, I did confess going into the ladies' lavatory, but I don't remember. Oh, I did. I was singing the Rocky.
The theme to Rocky. Dun 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 dun. Yeah,
that's
you said it. So my mind went there. So as I say, my mind is a scary place.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
Where did it go?
Oh, I was going into the chorus.
In the verse there, mate. But
That's
yeah,
way
okay,
too much. Yes.
it's combinado. It's a deal. I will do that next time I use the ladies' lavatory at the Welsh bar, which is quite a scenario, isn't it? I will be going in there with Sweet Caroline.
And you can shorten it by just going, Sweet Caroline. That's all you have to do. Then, da, da, da.
Okay.
You don't have to go through the whole,
Right.
brass introduction to get there.
Depends how long we have to wait. Anyway, okay.
True. Well, you could try the chorus or the response. If that didn't work, then go into the rest of the song.
Yeah, people outside go, what is going on in there? Oh, it's just the English guy who likes singing songs in the ladies' toilet. Oh, okay, fair enough.
To get a response, yeah.
Yeah, might as well say questionable. Right.
So one of the things I have spent time, because I focus on pronunciation, as I have said, I think about accents. And I like accents. For an American, foreign accents are not all that common. In Europe, it's much more common because you have all these countries that speak different languages who are now speaking English as sort of the universal international language. So as an American, you get to hear all these accents on English, which could also be British English. And British English is an accent to an American ear and vice versa. But it got me thinking about what is an accent, because I can't hear my accent. When I speak Portuguese, no matter how much I try to get the pronunciation right, I can't hear how much of an accent I have in that. So I learned, we can't hear our own accents. So I started thinking, well, what is an accent after all? So if you say you like a French accent, what are you saying? It's like, well, I can definitely hear, or if you say someone speaks, that French person speaks English really well, it means that their accent isn't so strong that you can't hear your language. So an accent to me is basically using the sounds that you make with your native language, but the words of the foreign language. And so as a stereotype, because certain accents are stronger and more recognizable. And I watch Formula One, which is a great opportunity to see all these different languages speaking English. Yeah. Mm. So and one of them is Charles Leclerc, who has a French accent, but he speaks English beautifully. He's got a huge vocabulary, understands the context, all the stuff. But
and some great supermarkets, some very good supermarkets as well.
Okay, but he's always talking like this, and he tells you all the intricate details of his experience and the value of those things. It's like, I understand it all. I know he's French, and I love the accent. But if he's talking like me, because he's really worked on eliminating the accent, then he's going to sound much more American. And for me, I love the accent, so it's not about getting rid of it. But it makes me wonder, I said, okay, well, if that's the case, then the extreme American accent would be, Bon dia, ¿cómo estás, Hoji?
Yes.
Like,
can I do the British version? Can I do the British
version? Yes.
Hola, bon dia, tudo bem.
Yes. And there, the accent is so heavy, the Portuguese are going to go,
you're English, right? Or you're American.
What did he say? Right? Yeah. They probably say, I don't speak English, even though you're using Portuguese.
Yeah.
So for me, pronunciation, it's just an informer for me to relax on the pronunciation. I still want to get it as close to Portuguese as possible. And I know that it's never going to, I don't believe I'm ever going to sound like a native Portuguese, which is okay. I just want the Portuguese to understand me. And while I love other accents, I'm not so sure I would love an American accent. And I'm not this, I don't know. I hear Americans speak Portuguese, and I just go, like that.
Me too with Brits. Yes, yeah.
So there's, but yeah, I don't hear a French person speaking English and go, because there's a French accent, an Italian accent. Those accents, I go, oh, lovely. So it's perhaps the foreigners think, oh, American accent, lovely. I don't know. Non-Americans could really help me with that. But I just have this. I don't particularly think.
You know what? I want to
that.
add something to this, if I may, James. And because this is something, it was a bit too heavy. It was an idea I was going to put to you yesterday in our pre-production meeting, as we have on WhatsApp, and which will be
those one sentences of "see you tomorrow." That conversation,
that sort of thing. But I was thinking, when might we do the dark side, the shadow of migration? And by that I mean races being able to take a joke about themselves or take on board some of the things that are not so nice about them, because it's a difficult subject, isn't it? And it was Colleen Showalter from Portugal to Place said she was so candid about it last week, and she said, I know I'm an American. I know how it can sound. It was like something like that. And we allow people. And it was like such an honest embracing of a national characteristic, like elephant in the room stuff. And every nationality's got it, hasn't it? Every nationality's got it. And I think we'd be better off if we could embrace it and talk about it. Because when we don't, it doesn't get any better, does it? It's not like it goes away. It just becomes more and more awkward, I think. So maybe there will come a time when we have that kind of shadow thing that we're able to embrace our respective races from which we came, which we shouldn't take too seriously because it's only one aspect of us. It's a big aspect, but it's only one aspect.
If you go to the beginning, we all came from the same place. So
right. And then we've got flavored, didn't we? Got flavored, and our most recent experience was of a certain kind of culture, which made us the kind of people we are, with certain sets of expectations from wherever it is we came from. And all of the countries have are in different places on these spectrums of expectation and how they project and present themselves. And I just think it would be so funny to have an open conversation about that rather than wincing like you and I were just. It's like, I'm hearing English people speaking Portuguese and going, "Ay, you pulled us in the face."
I noticed it first, and Hank will laugh with me, so I'm not talking bad about him, but because he and Connie moved to the north, to Porto, they say, oh, we really love the Porto area, we want to live there. But Hank would always say Porto.
Yeah.
We're going to move to Porto. We're so, and he and I have given each other permission to talk about language and shift things, and he invites it. So it got to the point that every time he made a reference to Porto, I'd say, where? And he'd say Porto. And I said,
shut up, James.
Is that in Portugal? And he'd go, oh yeah. Porto. I said, Porto, see, like that. So that's the game we played. But that was the key. And then I found having to say, and you may have noticed on the show, not just you, but other people, that I have a very similar response to Monty Gordo.
Yeah, right.
It sounds like a game show host to me. Monty Gordo is a game show host. He's not the name of a Portuguese city, which would be, I think, closer to Monte Gordo, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. So then I got to thinking, this again, my mind. I remembered a comedian, a shtick they did about, because in California, Latino newscasters, particularly Mexicans, would speak on the news, would speak brilliant, just pure American English. So it's like, tonight on KMDW, troubles in San Jose. And they were just for the cities. It's like, several people were found celebrating in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. Like that. And so I started thinking about that. Well, if we're speaking English, then it's totally appropriate to say Portuguese cities with our English or American English accent.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right.
So, because it's just as different as me saying, well, yesterday I took the bus to Lisboa. It's like all of a sudden a shift in the pronunciation.
Is that pretentious, or is it an effort that should be applauded? It's interesting, isn't it? Because it does feel a bit clunky to chuck that in like that.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a right answer. For me, the reason I do it is every opportunity to practice.
Yeah.
And every city in Portugal is in Portuguese. So if I can learn how to pronounce it, if I can learn how to recognize the writing and how to say it correctly, then I'm practicing much wider, broader range of my language. Other people can think I sound like an idiot if I say, yeah, I'm going to see Connie and Hank in Porto. You know, okay, that's fine. But at least I'm practicing saying Porto, that kind of thing. So on that one, if anyone else has gone through how do I do my language in this other language thing? I go to the Portuguese. Don't worry about it.
How about that? As we conclude today's show, how about as a little way forward for the week? It's Boa Semana. We just let each other off the hook a little bit, right? Because that's what we're talking about here, isn't it? It's letting ourselves off the hook and possibly letting each other off the hook. And I'm imagining that nothing too bad would happen if we did that, right?
No, especially with the Portuguese.
Yes.
I have yet to meet a Portuguese who's wanted to hit me because I've tried speaking their language, no matter how much I butchered it. Even João has not beat me for murdering his name.
Exactly. You expect that in France, but not in Portugal. So, James, it's 10 o'clock, and I suspect there may be things left over, but I suspect you'll carry
I'll bring them next week.
Yeah, or you'll forget, and we'll do something completely different, which is our way of doing the Good Morning.
We'll see.
So I thank you very much for that. There was one little point earlier on. William Ogilvy said, Ogilvy, I beg your pardon, who is in La Dorsa. So good to see you in the country, William. 19 viewers, 10 likes. Come on, guys. Well, it's very interesting. We had a show last week that ended up with nearly 400 views. And this is how it works. There's this tight-knit little community. It's like a check-in first thing in the morning, the Gumper Gathering. And remember, folks, that whenever you're here in the morning, hundreds more people, literally now, will hear what we've been talking about and will comment. It's in a different time zone. Not everybody's available to watch between 8:30 and 10. But don't think that because there's only a few of us here, we're not making quite an impact around the world and spreading some Gumper love all over the world. So if you are a reluctant Gumper and you've not said hi, please do say hi. When James isn't on the screen, he'll make you feel very welcome behind the scenes, and that's not a euphemism. So please say hi and remember that our impact is felt all around the world and by many more people than the little intimate gathering we have on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday morning. So James, thank you very much indeed. Great to see you. I'm going to play you a little bit of Monte Gordo now. Because you mentioned him.
First, to my Portuguese friends, I really want to say a personal thank you. You know who you are. You've been very, very helpful to me in encouraging me and supporting my learning of the language and your friendship more than anything. So thank you.
All right. And that's lovely. And they know who they are, don't they? What's the split of web versus mobile viewing? Don't know off the top of my head. It's all there on YouTube, though. I can find that out if you would like to know. I don't tend to pay too much attention. I'm too busy having fun, hanging out with the Gumpers here, Darren. Have a great day, you and everybody else. And don't forget, you've always got this. This is the first thing you might want to learn, which is Não fala português, desculpe. And take it from there.
Eu só falo pouco português.
Pouco português, just equally good to have in the back pocket. Go out, make a fool of yourselves, and look at this. That's the place to end. Muito bem.
Obrigadinho.
All right, ciao. Até amanhã.
Serious way, Filomena. Obrigado.
All right, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.